Hey, everybody, welcome here to the latest installment of Disgruntled. I usually like to explain to you what today's plan is for the content that you will be viewing. But I have to say that as I was preparing the studio for recording today, our good friend Jason came rip roaring into the studio and said, "Fire up the cameras, let's go. I got some shit to talk about." So I have no idea what we are talking about. I'm hoping that it's wholesome and fun family style content to talk about, but I can't guarantee that. So sit back and relax. And hello, hi, Jason. How are you?
What's going on? Long time no see.
Well, we're happy to have you back as always. So I guess the floor is yours, sir. What is it
All right.
that you got to say?
All right. So it's no surprise these past few years have been absolute insanity for a lot of people, right?
Right.
And recently in the past year, I've run into a string of things that they've lacked a reason. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but I knew the things that were happening. A lot of them were outside of my control, but yet they were fully in my control. And so I was having a difficult time understanding this. And a great friend of mine, Dave Wurst, the guy I get my beef from, friend from church, loved the movie Act of Valor,
Okay.
right? And so I finally watched it again for the first time in probably 12 years. And I noticed something, and it was something that I think all veterans understand. And I certainly think that it's something that probably our loved ones understand even better.
Oh.
And what I was noticing was in that movie, right? It's that next man up philosophy. It doesn't matter, right? When you wear the uniform, and certainly I'm not trying to equate what I've watched in that movie to my experience because let's be honest. If I was an operator, this country's in trouble.
Right.
Right? So, but we do have that next man up. Like it didn't matter, right? Like if any of your boys weren't going to be rolling on that patrol, you weren't not going.
Right.
Right.
Somebody has to.
You next man up.
Right.
And we always treat each other, especially those who spend a lot of time together in the military or in a theater of operations. But even those that are, in the Guard or in the reserves that drill with one another, that have never been deployed, we have this thing, this next man up philosophy and that mentality that we trust that the people that are around us are capable, if not better, at doing our job than we are, that we know how non-essential we are to our own position in the military, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And so with some of the issues that I was having, what I noticed was, and it wasn't a problem with the people. Quite frankly, it didn't matter who I was going to bring in to do this particular thing or to work for me, with me, etc. I always thought about them like they were guys that I served with, where we are carpenters, right? And every carpenter in the real world has different skill levels. Whereas in the military, we're kind of all on the same plane. And there's certainly, and I'm just saying the ebbs and flows, the mean is much more centralized in the military than it is in the real world for obvious reasons. But all of my failures, because ultimately they're my failures, it has nothing to do with anybody else. Every time you point your finger, there's three coming back. But I have been treating the people around me like next man up. And I started to think about it. They're not the next man up. It's not that they're not great people. It's not that they're not wonderful fathers, extraordinary carpenters in their own right. But at the end of the day, they're not me. And when you are the conductor of an orchestra, when the conductor walks away, the orchestra changes. It's not like the military. When the conductor is gone, next man up. If your commander gets taken out, it doesn't stop the entire company from conducting the mission. If your lieutenant takes one, next man up.
Yeah. The
Platoon daddy's walking in.
the commander's intent still exists.
It still exists, right? And so it's a completely errant idea, and maybe I'm just way out there on this one, but I certainly think that it's something that I had to take heart because I know how deflated I've been with the people that I've been putting around me to do certain things, and they have not been abject failures. But in my mind, we have had failures. And that was something that never happened in the military. And it's not something that can be boilerplated and just used in our regular lives. And today, and it's really only been a few hours since this came to me, right? So this is, as I'm speaking these words, these are the first real times, or the first time that I've really tried to put it together in a context that's relatable, that's verbal, that's understandable. With absolutely zero focus time in between. But I think it's one of those things, like when we talk about the difficulties, well, apparently not only
word.
Yeah. Speaking that word happens to be one of them, that veterans have when we enter the civilian space again, is we have that feeling, that innate willingness to kind of hand that over when we're amongst people we trust, to kind of be us. And let me tell you, bro, it doesn't work like that. Nobody's Richard Leonard. Nobody's Jason Oates. And when you're in the real world, that shit matters. In the military, Sergeant Leonard, and Private Oates, totally exchangeable. But out here,
we're expendable. We're expendable things,
right?
So to speak.
Yeah, so to speak. But I mean, it's fought. There's this weird equality. If I were going to, there's a buzzword I didn't think was going to come out of my mouth, but a true equality amongst our brothers and sisters. Which is something that you don't always have, because anybody who's spent any time in corporate America knows, like, the keeper of information is the one that always gets that next promotion, or the ass kisser. It's that same shit, right? Like, what are the two things that rise to the top in milk?
Shit.
The cream and shit.
Yeah.
Right? So the best of the best and the worst of the worst. They're always going to be at the top. In the military, you don't have a ton of that. You don't. It's
there's a few outliers, but not many.
A few outliers, but it's not the thing. And I think this next man up philosophy that I want to live by is something that has to go away. It's one of these other debarking things for me to reprogram, to kind of lose that next thing in who I was and who I need to be.
Well, I wonder if it's, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. And I can certainly put context to it in my own life in many different instances. But is it really something that you or we as a community of people need to abandon? Because I think that part of what makes our community of veterans great is that we have that next man up mentality. But the trick is to be able to surround yourself with the people that will also play by that set of rules, which is very difficult to find. And then the question is that battle worth fighting? Is that journey worth traveling? That search for those people that will hear that and then submit to it.
Well, and I think you're absolutely right. And I think there's different context in the people that we have around us, right? Like, but you work for a company, right? So your job when you go in is already put together. It's all around you, right? It's more of a sterile environment. But in the self-employment world, I have a fluid, active environment that's ever changing. Yeah. And the people, the clients that reach out, they want me. And so I've been recently been giving more of that time to the client engagement, the customers, and having those conversations, things that, you know, they're very important. Don't get me wrong. Like, I know that's my blood. That's my lifeline. Like, that's everything. But what's been happening is, as I've been pulled that direction, I've thought about these guys that I've got around me, that they're just going to step right up. But the problem is, I'm pulled off. I'm no longer conducting the orchestra. And you're 100% right, because any of you out there that know me, and if you're in the tribe, it doesn't matter. That next man up still lives.
Yeah, right.
But it can't live in a lot of professional context when it comes to your career, when it comes to...
Yeah, because now you're putting your livelihood and the name of your business or your organization on the shoulders of somebody else.
Right. Oh, it's nobody's going to take it more serious than you are.
Right.
Right. And so, and it's not like, and again, there's not been an abject failure. There were some hiring issues for sure. Right.
Yeah.
Whew, had some problems.
And lessons learned, buddy.
Lessons learned, and dollars get lost. Fortunes get made and lost every day. I mean, I'm in no place whining or bitching or complaining, but it is one of those very important things that I was able to realize today, because that's that thing. That's that struggle and growth. You know, we have it normally, but I certainly think we have to be looking at some of these these military tendencies that we had. You know, not only the programming and the bullshit like that, or the certain, you know, the humor, you know, that we carry along. Because I'm never going to let that humor go.
Well,
right. I don't get to bring it out a lot here, because even for a podcast that gets viewed about as frequently as, you know, my toilet does every day, I still think some of the jokes I would make are not fit for human ears, other than the select group of human beings.
Well, maybe we should, you know what? I'm glad that you bring that up. Maybe we should make some sort of like disgruntled, unfiltered playlist or channel or something like that. Maybe it can't be on YouTube, because we may get canceled 30 seconds into the first show.
I don't think it should be on the internet. I almost think it's like that TV show The Office, where the character Creed is looking for, he wants to create a blog, and Ryan, one of the guys on the show, makes basically it's a Word document that he names like www.creedthoughts.com, whatever.
Yeah.
So he thinks he's blogging, but it's literally just a Word document that he uploads, and then Ryan can read it, and he's like, yeah, like this, I don't even think this should belong on the internet. That's the kind of shit that we talk about.
That's very true.
Creed Thoughts.
That's very true. But I also think that there are folks out there that probably would appreciate that kind of candid conversation.
I think, yeah, and I'm hopeful if you know those people out there, make sure you send a link. Those people you want to invite over, but you know your parents are going to be there, so you're like, you know, I'll let them know to show up at 9 p.m. We want your 9 p.m. friends.
But here's the thing: I think that what you say is very valid, and I think that part of this has to do with the fact that it's just another example of how the Army or the military in general does a really good job at piss pounding these things, India. But they don't give you a whole lot of great tools to turn it off. And
great
so
tools?
They don't, well, or any tools, I guess, for that matter. Because now that you have learned what you needed to do, for most people, they go and they do their duty and they serve honorably, and the mission for the most part gets accomplished, whatever that mission is. Now you've served your purpose, and now the United States government has gotten their money's worth, so to speak, out of you. All the time and energy and money they put into training you. But they don't spend a lot of time, or at least in my experience, they didn't spend a whole lot of time teaching you how to take those things away, or to compartmentalize them or speak
with difficulty.
Yeah. Compartmentalize them and put them in a place or in like a toolbox, so to speak, to be able to use when you need it. And so then we start navigating this world, and what a crazy world it's become. But now we start navigating this world and we run into issues like you're explaining here. And you find yourself in this rut and you don't know, you're stuck, right? Because you don't know how to turn that off. And you don't know how to find a different way. And you don't necessarily know how to talk about it with somebody who you're sure won't understand. And then every now and then you'll find somebody who you let in to get close. And then for whatever reason, that barrier or that wall that has been broken down gets even more obliterated. And it kind of, for the most part, just kind of crushes your business or what that relationship for whatever reason. And then what? You don't know how to fix it. So I think for you, it's a good thing that you've had this epiphany, that you've identified the problem, and you are making steps to make change.
Oh, fuck that, dude. I'm all in. Like, it's over. Nobody listens to techno. It's done. You know, but I think that's the most important thing, because I mean, you and I chat all the time, and we're always talking about stuff, and I swear we share. I'm like a 13-year-old girl when I talk to you. Like, I feel like I don't like that. I don't even, the few times I've gone to shrinks, I don't even say the shit that I would say to them that I say to you. Like, we talk about this stuff. And that's why I love this show. And I love being in a place where I'm like, you know what? Like, I told my wife tonight, I'm like, hey, Richie's down in the studio and I'm going to go do a little therapy.
Oh.
Right? That's what I call this. I mean, it's therapeutic. It's, to be honest, like, we're all built flawed as hell.
Yeah.
But I think in the military, we get this callousness about our flaws. You know, we almost want to carry them out there like, oh, yeah, this is me. Yeah, my fucking leg doesn't work anymore. Ha, 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 ha. Right? Like, it's no big deal. No. Like, a normal person will take 5 minutes to fix themselves. Mm-hmm. We will spend 5 years to avoid fixing it. And so when you get these opportunities to talk about it, you think you're killing it and you're being killed by it. You know, that's something that I talked about probably a year ago. I know we've mentioned it on, your Richard Leonard show on Rumble. Mm-hmm. Richie's wonderful show out there for all of you guys.
Check it out.
Check that one out. But it's crazy because, here you've got the line, right? I'm hearing it. I say it. I tell other people about it. Like, I can see when it's happening to them. Well, here it was, beating the ever-living shit out of me. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I didn't see it until today. And it's not like a fatal flaw. Like, it's one of the more enduring characteristics that I believe military and certainly veterans have. It's our ability to continue that line. Like, I'm not going to get rid of that line of thinking, that way of living. I'm just not going to apply it to every aspect of my life. It's not going to be here. It's going to be compartmentalized with difficulty.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's where it's going to live. Because if I let it come out here, it's going to skew my judgment. It's going to cause further issues with how I want to live my life. And I think there might even be the bigger thing when you hammered on that compartmentalization, like all of these cool things that we have from being in the military, from the experiences to how we operate, to how we are unique in how we deal with complex or difficult situations. But you can't be like that when you're at home.
Well,
right?
It doesn't work out well, probably.
It's not as effective. I think for all I can speak on behalf of all veterans right now, for those of you that are on your first, second, third, or up to 25th marriage, those spouses deserve a hell of a lot of credit for dealing with guys like us. And spouses deal with just as much on the other side. So for you men out there that maybe have females that were in the military in your lives, for sure, man, it is tremendously difficult because my wife sees what I'm willing to pour out for everybody else. And I know she constantly questions, like, how much are you going to leave for us? And a lot of times I come up short. Like I lay it all out there for all these other things. And then I get home and I look at it. I'm like, and this is, you know, I gave them the Danny DeVito, the leftover shit from the movie Twins,
Yeah.
you know, but I left Schwarzenegger. I put on the whole show for the other, 16 hours a day. And then I come home and I collapse on the couch because I'm not willing to give that up. I'm not paying attention where it's important.
Yeah, well, and so that's the conundrum, right? Mm-hmm. Like, this is the 16 hours a day you spend outside of your home is your battlefield. This is where you go to capture your spoils, right? The things that you do to bring home a meal and comfort for your wife and your children. And so some would say when you get home and you collapse on the couch because you've been busting your balls for 16 hours a day, you have every right to do so. But there's also those 3 other people that need you as well. And so then the question becomes, who needs it more? Who needs your attention, and who needs your output and your tenderness, and whatever the case may be? Who needs it more? And the challenge becomes, how do you divvy it up equally, or how do you divvy it up 60-40? However you need to make that math work.
Right.
Right. And so it is a conundrum.
Yeah, that homework. I think all people experience that. You know?
But also remember, the shrink that I saw once told me, well, she told me many times, she said the one thing that veterans don't often remember or keep in the front of their minds, and certainly their spouses or their families or their friends, people that are close to them, have absolutely no idea about because they don't live it, is how much energy it takes you to even just get up out of bed and go through your day, dealing with whatever issues it is that you may have. And all of that is stacked underneath running your business, stacked underneath bad hiring decisions, stacked underneath this, stacked underneath that, and then finally stacked underneath your wife and kids need your time and your attention as well. And so sometimes there just really isn't a whole lot left, like you were saying. You have to be able to dig deep down into your sack and find a little bit extra for the day, and just sometimes it's not possible.
Right. Yeah, and it's shocking though, because I think we definitely crossed over into another show.
Well,
right
but
here.
I think that it's all relative and it's all relevant to where you're
100%.
coming from.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unwrap in what you just said though, which I think is whatever. I'm stopping talking right now. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like that's kind of like the coolest part about when you have these epiphanies, because I know this isn't the first one I've had. I'm sure you've had some where you're like, you kind of have that coming to Jesus moment where you're looking in the mirror and you're like, oh, that was all on me, Mm-hmm. And you could have spent weeks, months, or years doing certain things and seeing it as somebody else. Like it was happening because of all these other things. And then all of a sudden, you're given that moment of clarity and you're smart enough to see how flawed you are to be able to step in and go.
And it's confusing. It's confusing because in the moment, you think to yourself, well, how can this be blowing up in my face? Mm-hmm. Like this is I'm doing what I was taught to do. I'm doing what I was trained to do. I'm doing what I was told was right.
Yep.
And it's not working out. And so what do? And as veterans, the easiest thing to do is to compartmentalize that and put it away. Because what we are really good at for sure is suffering in silence.
Oh, yeah.
By all means.
Yes, sir.
This community of people will suffer in silence the rest of their lives if they have to, just based on principle, just because I didn't feel like talking about it, whatever the case may be. And maybe that's one thing that we as a community need to get behind each other and start slapping each other on the back of the neck and saying, knock that shit off.
Right.
And maybe all of our lives would be a little bit better. But I'm no expert. I'm definitely no shrink.
You don't even play one on TV?
No, absolutely
sure?
not. Nobody would ever believe it, bro.
I don't know. But I think that's why this show can be wonderful.
Yeah.
Because we have that opportunity. Like, you don't need a shrink to tell you when stuff is messed up, right? A shrink is good at giving you some ideas, where these things are. But ultimately, I think the great works that come for each and every one of us are the things that we finally come to ourselves and we can rationalize. And we can start to, maybe that's when you go to your shrink and you look for what's a creative way to do this? Like, I know that this is my thing, right? Because typically we don't know what to do at that point. Like you've gone through your toolbox, you've used everything that you have,
Yeah.
And then they come in and they do their thing. But you kick down and Richard nailed it once again, right? This whole suffering in silence.
Oh, yeah.
Because we always look at things like, nope, it can be worse. It can be worse. Why? It's a line I use. There's no bullets flying, no babies dying.
Embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck. I mean, every one of these lines that we use that, when new people come and work around us or subcontractors and they hear me say these things, they're just like, hold up, this guy's a whack job. Like that's his level of a good or a bad day. Like I could be completely covered in human excrement.
Yeah, that's gross.
And I'm not a plumber. Right, I'm just doing this because I've got clients that call me that are lovely people and they're in a tough spot, and I'll go jump in and I'll go get it done, and it doesn't seem to bother me. Now it bothers my wife when I come home and I come trudging through the house, which I'm getting much better at, But there's nothing we hit and we stop. We stumble, but we just keep getting up and we keep running into the same door. I mean. Let's be honest. I should have known something was amiss the first 100K I lost this year. But no. It took a few more to get there. Right? Like a lot of people would be smart enough to see this. I couldn't. I couldn't.
What's the definition of insanity?
I don't know. That second enlistment?
Doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
I know, but that's,
like enlisting.
That's your second enlistment.
Yeah,
dude.
like enlisting again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. And so, but now what's exciting is that you're at the point, right? Like you've reached the precipice of this hill and you're not going to lose another 100K. You're not going to allow yourself to be taken advantage of if that's what happened. You're not going to allow yourself to go through this again because now you've had this come to Jesus moment with yourself.
Right. Well, I think, and that's something that hopefully, if you're a veteran or a veteran out there, that you're watching them continually do the same thing, and they're great people. I'm not including myself in that group, but I'm saying we all know a veteran who's doing the same thing.
You're great people.
Oh, I'm people, but I digress. Don't need the air pump.
That's Jason's way.
I don't need
of
those
just saying shut the hell
tires.
up for a second.
trying to be nice, but share this video with them. I think this is one of those things. It might not be about this particular issue, but when veterans start to discuss that we can fail and still be successful, that tagline, task failed successfully,
Yeah.
isn't just for those things that we honestly go to accomplish. We do it the wrong way and it works out. It's also just understanding why we can, or where we're failing, seeing it, understanding it, and changing it. Artillery is only off by 3 degrees to be unsuccessful.
So adjust and fire for effect.
Adjust and fire for effect. So I mean, these are very simple things, and they seem like nonsense. The fact that we're still talking about this one little thing is wonderful to me, because I think it's the small tweaks for veterans that can help them the most, because it's typically that little shift. It's that 3 degrees that gets them back into a path of success again. Because nobody just wakes up homeless, right? There were things that occur that go down this path. And the closer we can get to left of bang, rather than as a veteran culture constantly dealing with shit right of bang after it happens, start to share these experiences with one another. Tell the stories of our failures so other people can maybe recognize a little bit earlier than you did, or maybe a little bit earlier than I did.
Yeah.
Boy, we could save each other just by talking. So anyway,
That's the whole. Well, I'm glad that you ended your thought that way, because I'd like to say that that's the whole reason that we thought of this platform, of this channel, of this show, Disgruntled. And I didn't know that when Jason came rip roaring in this studio that he was disgruntled, but he was, and that's okay. And so these are the things that we hope to be doing here, right? This is the place that we should be talking about these issues. Nobody else, it seems, in the space of veterans is talking about things like this for each other. And I don't see why not. But the good thing is that there is now, and we're here. And so that leads me into just mentioning again that we need to grow this platform. And so, like Jason said, share this video with people who you think might need to hear it. I don't claim to be an expert. Jason's an expert on a lot of things, but he's not a shrink either. So somebody can see it. Maybe somebody can expound on what it is we're talking about and further the narrative. That'd be fantastic. Let's have those conversations. That is what we're here for. Do you have anything else? Like, did you want to do a final thought, or did you give your final thought?
I think I already did.
Okay, I thought I'd be able to suck another one out of him. But I think that what's important is that we continue to work to recognize the things that maybe were pounded into us as soldiers or sailors or Marines that don't necessarily bode well for us outside of the service. And I think that there's many of them. The key is, how do you turn it off, train yourself away from it, and try to get away from that compartmentalization. That was a lot easier that time, by the way. And get yourself away from that, because then it never really truly goes away. And at some point, it's going to come back out. And it may or may not cause you problems. But what we do know is that when it does make its way out, it's more of a hindrance than it is a help. And so, for whatever it's worth, take all that, try to apply it to your life. If you know somebody that could use these words, then send it to them. If it's you, watch it a couple times. Think about it. Maybe you have a different take on it, and we would love to hear that. So if you go down somewhere around here, you can leave us comments and let's start that conversation. But anyway, we got to get running. We will see you again next time. Have a great evening. Good night.